Good afternoon from England, ladies and gentlemen. This is my land. I'm an Ingle, or an Angle. And I come from England. What, toodle pip, etc., etc. Chocks away, Jerry. Why is it when Americans do a British accent, they say things like, "Oh, I'm from England. I like tea and crumpets with cream." They do this weird Dick Van Dyke thing. What's that about? You know, there's no such thing as a British accent, right? Britain's a very, very big place. You should, if you're going to do an accent and you want to impress English people, choose one. And the right one to choose is not, "Oh, Harry Potter, I'm Hermione, and this is received pronunciation, and I'm extremely posh," because nobody speaks like that, except very, very posh people. And peasants like me, we're not allowed to see them in case the vision of us infects their precious posh people eyes. They live within a gated community of nice people eating pearls, and all the peasants are kept away. So you should choose a Scouse accent, and then you can be like, "I know how to speak British, ring-a-ding-dang," because all of you are from the South. Haha. See, how's that feel? "Oh, I'm an American. Hey! My sister's, my mother's, Annie, and I love her." See, it's irritating. It's irritating. So you should learn Scouse. Visceral Gravitas. Visceral Gravitas is a YouTube channel that I highly recommend. He's got some good clips of your host this evening, and also with Sam Backman on there, Visceral Gravitas. And I've been doing a couple of live Q&As with him and his people exploring codependency, and I recommend you go there. He's asked me if I will do Scouse mental health teachings. I myself am not a Scouser. I am from the Wirral, which is the countryside, horses and sheep and greenery. And true Scousers are from Liverpool, which does have some horses and sheep and greenery, but you have to go far outside the city for that. But the accent is ubiquitous for the whole area, all the way to North Wales, down to Rhyl, and up to Southport. People speak with a Scouse accent. And that's what you have to learn. And I discussed this with Terry and Steve the other day, my two coaches. They are from Liverpool. And Terry said he'd formed a Scouse meta model for challenging assumptions that begins with somebody makes an assertion about something being true, like, "Oh, I'm depressed." And then he's like, "His Scouse meta model is, you are." How do you know? How do you know? This is how we challenge assumptions in the Scouse meta model. You go, "You what? How do you know that?" What? It's not what. It's not what. It's what. And you have to look, all accents, this is psychology research. Genuinely, I'm not joking now. They say that accents are physiological. They're actually in the body as much as in the sound. We focus on the sounds, but they're actually in the body. So you can't make a neutral face and go, "What, lad? What are you?" Oh, you can. Well, I can. That's because I'm from there. Don't you try it. You have to go, "What? What? It's who? Who?" That's who. Who? "You what, lad? Who told you that?" Who told you that? 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 Sometimes when I'm in a foreign country and I'm speaking to one of my friends on the phone and I'm not doing my posh YouTube voice and they hear me speaking Scouse, that's because I joke with my friends who are from Liverpool and I put on a more strong Scouse accent, I don't know, just to amuse them and to amuse myself. And then the foreign person who I'm with, whichever country I'm in, who's like, "Oh, you're from Germany. How wonderful." Because we do that a little bit, and there's a bit of och, ach, uch in the back of the throat as well. So you get those coordinates and you think, "Oh, it's German." Now, today, we're not here to discuss Scouse accents. That's called a palate cleanser. I'm here with you. You're here with me. We're allowing people to join. And what we're actually going to be discussing, because I looked at the questions, and a few jumped out at me. And when they jumped out at me, they poked me in both of my eyes. So if you're finished practicing your Scouse and sat there on your own going, "Hey, what? Who told you that? then we can begin. It's all about the facial expressions, the noises, you see. A, what's that? It's not a word. A, 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 A. See, but these things, they have meaning. They're words that we make with our throat and face. There is the signifier, which is the words and the expressions, and then there is the signified. And in the times that we're living in, with the extreme use of technology and social media, the boundaries break down between the signifier and the signified. The finger pointing to the moon, which if you look at the finger, you will miss all the heavenly glory. You don't want to mistake finger for moon. The signifier is not that which is signified. I was asked, 2 questions that jumped out. How did you personally deal with your shadow? And I'll tell you that now. Here we go. And then I was also asked, what one thing can people be doing now that would dramatically improve everything? And I'll tie the 2 things together. So I'm going to go through briefly. So the concept of the shago, that's called a Freudian slip. My shago involved a lot of shagging because of hypersexualization in my life from various experiences in my childhood. So I had to resolve my shago. When I was looking at this, I really wasn't impressed with it when people talked to me about the Jungian shadow. I think it was the people who were talking to me about it. How should I put it? They seemed like shirkers. They seemed lazy. They seemed like the type of people. Well, back in the day, we didn't use the term virtue signaling. I don't know whether it was around or whether it just wasn't popularized, but it never reached my brain and ears. And so I would just think of these people and I think they're a bit floppy. They're a bit wispy, a bit beardy, and a bit posy. And so I wasn't interested. I was like, you can keep that shadow, you bunch of hippie posers. I don't believe in that. But I also didn't, I think I spent the first sort of 5 years of my life when I was like studying psychology at university and for a few years beyond. I didn't believe in the unconscious. I didn't believe that was a thing that was there. I wasn't interested in delving particularly deeply into psychoanalytic theory. But what it is, and I do think it's a useful model, though it does not actually exist, because we're on a philosophy channel here. We have to be careful. I don't think any of these things actually exist. And I think it's foolish to take models of reality and to try and bang them over people's heads as though they're real things. They're not. Nobody has the totalitarian right to shut you down and say, no, this is absolutely the way things are. We don't know. But I think these are useful models. So we have Freud's version of the unconscious. And then Jung's version of the unconscious was not a million miles away, but allows for an awful lot more. I used to say it wasn't there. And people recently, I've heard this come up. They're like, how do you know the unconscious is a thing? How do you know it's there? Well, it isn't there. It's a not there. It's the yin to the conscious mind's yang. And if you spend time thinking about it from the psychoanalytic perspective and expanding it out philosophically, as a psychoanalyst turned philosopher like Slavoj Žižek does, it's actually quite, it's hard to grasp. He uses the term the reality of the virtual. So we've all heard of virtual reality, and Zizek loves his inversions, so he speaks of the reality of the virtual. And I'd heard him say that for years. I'd heard him say it again and again, and I was like, Slavoj, Zizo, lads, I don't know what you're going on about, mate. This is fucking confusing as fuck for me, lad. Sorry for swearing. If there's any children listening, put headphones on now. And I was listening to him one day, and I realized he was talking about that which was not, but that still affects you, and that still guides your life, and that still implicitly coerces and informs your decision making. Hence his repetition of the joke about, a time during war in the former Yugoslavia where supplies were low, and you could go to a cafe and say, I would like a coffee without cream. and they would say, we are not the coffee, we are not the cafe that doesn't have cream. We're the cafe that doesn't have milk. So you cannot have coffee without cream because there was never any cream here to begin with. This is his joke. Zizekian jokes are not hilarious. They're thinkers, they're Zen koans. That which is not there, that which is omitted in psychoanalytic theory, is often as significant as that which is there. When you're looking at politics and ideology today, if you are foolish enough to gaze deeply into the eye of Sauron and do that, you have to consider that which is not there as being just as important as that which is. When we're receiving messages, you should ask, what is not there? It's like trying to look at the white space on the paper between the black printed words. The words are content. What is the white space? So the content of the black printed words made in ink would be like the conscious mind. And what the conscious mind deals with, that's yang. That is that which is. It's a scepter. It's a wand. It's a written word. Yes, it's phallic, and there's a seminal excretion element to writing and to writing spells. You take your phallic wand and you direct the energy of the world in the way that you want, and then you write a spell. But where do you write it? The inkwell is yin. It's the cup that holds the ink. The paper is yin. It's that which holds the yang. So you can think about it in these terms. It's that which is not, right? So as I've grown up in the last few years and people have asked me more and more about the shadow work, I realized two things. One is this is actually a useful model for thinking about things. And the second is I've actually done shadow work. I just didn't know it. I didn't call it that. What I called it was overcoming childhood trauma, telling myself the truth, and resolving CPTSD. And that is shadow work. Full disclosure. Jung never said the words shadow work. Those lads didn't think in those terms. This is very much a modern Western consumer capitalist idea. Like, here's a concept that Jung wrote about in a very vague way that was full of, if you try and read him, it's like reading Rumi or some other Sufi poet. It's full of the implicit understanding that you'll just get him. And now as a modern person, I'm reading it in a very literal way, and I'm going, no, I don't get you. And I came across a quote recently where from Jung, it's a more obscure quote. Unlike most of the misquotes that you see from Jung that you see floating around Instagram, most of them are actually wrong. He didn't actually say them, which was that shadow work. He didn't say shadow work. He said the integration of the shadow is going to come about as a natural part of everyone's life. So he didn't even say, oh, Jungian psychoanalysis is the best thing for doing this. He was like, being alive is the best thing to do this. It happens. You resolve your shadow. You will resolve your shadow to some degree over time. Psychoanalysis, to the extent that it brings you to truth and away from illusion, will help you to resolve it faster. So what is the unconscious? In this context, we'd say, okay, what's the proof that we could say, what's the proof of the unconscious? Okay, well, are you always thinking about how you breathe? Are you always thinking when you drive your car and go somewhere how to get there? Or do you just start driving, think about something else and show up? Do you put one foot in front of the other and say left foot, right foot, right foot? Or do you just walk? These things are in the mind, but they're outside the realm of the conscious mind. When you think about it from this point of view, you come to see that there's very little that's within the realm of the conscious mind. Most of what we do, the thick end of the wedge of your daily activities, breathing, you drift into the kitchen in a half trance state and start making yourself food when you're hungry. You can put food in your mouth, chew it up and swallow it, because that's a skill that we all have, that we're experts at that we developed since childhood. You wouldn't be an expert at it if you had an accident or you went into a coma for long enough, or there was some brain damage. You'd have to relearn how to do that. But at the moment, you can do it unconsciously. This is the realm of the unconscious. It's the yin. It's that which is present, but that you're not aware of. So anything that you are doing that is in the realm of mind or emotion, but you're not aware of it, it is unconscious. It's the unconscious mind. Fine. Okay, so Freud would say, went a little bit further and said it seems to be said he came up with some hypotheses that reflected a model of the unconscious mind that seemed to be something like, it's important, you can put things into it that you don't want to look at. And if you do that, you're repressing and suppressing, and they'll show back up elsewhere. Jung took the ball a little bit further at first, and then many years later, he took it a lot further, and then he just dissolved the ball and turned into an alien and flew away. He said that actually that which is placed into the unconscious can possess us. It can come back and possess us, and that's shadow possession. So what's there in the shadow? Pretty much everything that we've disavowed. If it showed up in the conscious and we didn't like it, if it showed up in the light of the unconscious, I have a ring light on here. So you see like the rays of light on the moon, my hand, my white palm is bright, but the back of my hand that you can't see is currently in shadow. That's the dark side of the moon. So this is the shadow. I can't show you my shadow because as I turn my hand to try and show you, the light hits it. So light is conscious, yang. Yang is light. Yin is darkness. I'm trying to show you the yin, and I can't because you are looking at me from a position of lightness, so you can't see. Everything that we disavow, we put into the shadow. Where and when did I start doing my shadow work? I believe there was actually like a moment. I was in Malaysia and my life really sucked. I think I was 34 and I was what I think of now as being a standard issue, broken Western male, like purposeless, full of self-loathing, the mental injunctions that I had running in my mind from my own personal abuse and messages from society and culture were tearing me apart. I had been in narcissistically abusive relationships quite naturally because I was raised in a narcissistically abusive culture and I thought that that was normal. I didn't have any boundaries to say no to it because, I don't know, I was raised with the idea that it was verboten for me to say no to these things and that there was no other choice. And yeah, it must have been, let me see, my maths isn't great. So 2013, 2012, about 9 years ago. Yeah, maybe a bit younger, maybe 32, maybe 33. So the story I tell of going to Malaysia and of meeting the Sufi master and of being saved by the Sufi master when he began to pray for me. That was the moment where I really started to face my shadow. I was depressed. I was miserable. Suicidal ideation was perfectly normal for me. And people treated me in a way that I didn't really understand. And I realized there was a gap that had grown between how I perceived myself, and how other people were seeing me. My shadow. They could see my shadow, and I couldn't see my shadow. I could just see what my conscious mind was allowing me to see. And I started to ask myself good questions based on what I knew of philosophy. Most of my philosophical learning up until that point had come from the East. It had come from the Zen tradition. The only thing I had that was vaguely Western and philosophical was systems thinking. So I applied Buddhist Zen style thinking and systems thinking to the problem that I had, which was, here is how people, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper and I did spider diagrams and mind maps and flowcharts to externalize it and to help me. And I go, here is where I think I am. And here is how people see me. Bearing in mind at that time, my business was failing and I was living poor in a pretty poor area of Kuala Lumpur called the Happy Garden, which is behind the Pearl Point Mall. It's a mainly Chinese area. It's overwhelmingly Chinese area. It's a working class Chinese area. Some Vietnamese live there as well. And I think 3 white people live there. So that furthered the sense of a feeling of outsiderness, a feeling of not fitting in. I lived in a tower block there and there was just no reason for me to be there. and people would see me 100-something kilograms with a shaved head, and they had just assumed, I don't know, they just assumed I was a criminal, because why wouldn't they? And then I'd get all grumpy because people were looking at me like I was going to steal their handbags and, I don't know, kick their kid in the face or something. Like, I'm just trying to live my life. Why are you looking at me like that for? I'm just trying to live here. And I realized there was a gap. That was symbolic of what was happening right then and there in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia. But it was throughout my whole life. There was this gap between how people saw me and how I really was, what my intention was. And I reasoned. I used reason, and I said, who's to blame? And I was like, they're to blame. They're racists. They're racing to racifers. They want to be in the race. What's the race? Egg and spoon race. And they want me to be in it too, but I want to play the sack race. Maybe, maybe there's some responsibility on them. Maybe the Chinese aunties were laying it on a bit thick with me. They get in the lift with me and they like clutch their handbag and go on the other side of the lift. And I'm like, I'm just standing here sweating in this jungle heat. Do you think I look like I have the energy to steal your shitty bag? But I'd get grumpy about it. And I'd be like, okay, where's the responsibility? Okay, them, maybe a little bit. But why should they? Why should they be friendly to me? Why should they? They don't know me. I don't belong there. So why should they be friendly to me? Okay. Is there anything I can do about this situation? Well, I knew some Cantonese. I wasn't speaking it. I could start speaking Cantonese. I could change the way I approach people. I could try putting a smile on my face, and I could appreciate the fact that I was physically taller and heavier than everybody around me. So that was me in objectivity. I went into objectivity and I was like, how do I look? How do I act? Am I warm and friendly? Am I saying, I can't even remember what you're supposed to say, like respectfully, what would you say? Jiao in the mornings, or lehoma, or whatever, when you see people and smile. Can you do that? I say, yeah, okay, I can do that. Can you alter the way you're approaching people with your facial expressions, with the way you are? Can you alter the way that you speak to people when you're working online? Because I was running a self-defense business online. Can you alter the way you speak to your friends and your family and the people around you in such a way that they don't respond to you this way? Because the only person who's unhappy here is you. Everybody else is just in their own little worlds. They're solipsistically living through their individualized experience, and they owe you nothing. This was my reasoning. I'm not pushing this reasoning on you, by the way. It's up to you how you reason. I'm not a priest. I'm not a guru trying to start a cult. I don't really care. I mean this with all the due love and respect that there is. I don't really care how you reason. I mean, like, if I know you, most people here, I don't know you, I would be concerned if you were hurting yourself. I might gently intervene and be like, hey, what's up? Do this, do that. Have you thought about this? Maybe you shouldn't do so much of that, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know most of you. Do I care meta level? Like, in the sense of, like, do you care about human suffering? Yes, I care. I don't want people to suffer. I've suffered. It's awful. That's why I put so much effort into helping people with CPTSD and emotional flashbacks. It's like living in hell. It's absolute torture. But you must understand that I'm not your dad. And I don't know you. And if your life gets really fucked up, I'll never even hear about it. That's on you. That's not on me. Because I can't do anything about it. Because I'm not God. Here's my reasoning on this. And it's an important thing. And it helps you to develop boundaries and to overcome the shadow. If I can't control, this is also philosophical reasoning, and this is recent for me. If I can't control your actions, why should I be responsible for the consequences of your actions? There's a question. Whose actions are we responsible for? Actually, only our children. Why? To the extent that we're responsible for controlling their actions is the extent that we're responsible for the consequences of our children's actions. That's why you have this unusual legal in the legal world. See, I always like looking at the legal world. I could have been a solicitor. I could have been many things. That's what I fantasize about when I'm not being those things and I have no idea how hard it is. I just watch from afar and go, I think I could have done that. It's a great ego masturbation exercise because who's going to tell me I'm wrong? I'm on my own in my own head. Okay, I could totally do that. And nobody can be like, no, you won't, you fucking idiot. You wouldn't read those books. But law interests me because it's an effort to make that which is morally right into spells that are legally binding, that are legally spell binding, into legislature. We want law. And law is a philosophical exercise, fundamentally. It's completely a philosophical enterprise. When you hold court, that's a legal debate. That's a Socratic. It's a Socratic debate. In the essence of what it is, it's a Socratic debate. And I like to look at legally how things go. And I'm like, why do we have this weird legal thing between parents and children and or wards or guardians and children? Well, because if the child is young enough or irresponsible enough for other reasons, and you can control their actions, and you do control their actions within legal parameters, like if you're being abusive or psychopathic or you've kidnapped them or something, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about parenting, guidance, that's it. Then you are responsible for them. You're responsible for the consequence of your actions. Well, I'm not the parent of anybody here. Why am I saying this? Because, as I said at the beginning of this, in the online space, boundaries get blurred very quickly, and the boundaries blur between signifier and signified. And I can see in the comments and I feel in the attitude for people that they feel as though because they've spent time listening to me, they've paid their tithe or they've paid a tribute or they've paid an indulgence. And now the Church of Richie owes them something. Well, you are only here on my YouTube channel, on any YouTube channel, by your own volition. And what you do with your time and your attention is completely up to you. It's complete. I can't make you do anything. So I'm not responsible for the consequences of your actions. And I'm telling you this because it's hard to hear. I know it's hard to hear because somebody said it to me. They were a personal trainer. They were only a strength trainer. They weren't even giving me psychological guidance. They were giving me strength training guidance, but it really helped. They said nobody cares if you get a stronger back squat or not. Nobody gives a fuck. There is no other human alive except for you, whether you get better. Because I had physical issues, which I won't bore you. People know I have a bad knee. Nobody. He just said to me, nobody cares. No, he actually said, nobody gives a fuck whether your back squat gets better or not, except for you. And I needed to hear that. We all need to hear that our problems are our own. So I'm telling you how I dealt with it when I was in Malaysia, when I was dealing with my shadow. And I'm not telling you this is how you should deal with it because I don't know how you should deal with it. I do not know because I'm not God. And I need to tell you both, I don't know because I'm not God. I'm not your guru. I'm not your priest. And I can't save you. Only you get to save you. And you also need to hear that I don't care. Because I think people carry me around in their pockets and they fantasize they have a relationship with me that they don't have. I never like to hear stories of people suffering. But you must look at it from my point of view. I'm looking, like right now, there's 540 people watching this. I don't even have the software space. I don't have the software or the hardware to know 540 people. If I tried, like, I'd forget your names. Can you imagine how painful that would be? You speak to me and I call you the wrong fucking name. If it was me, I'd be devoed. I'd be absolutely gutted. If somebody who I followed on YouTube, they got to know me and then they forgot my fucking name, I'd be like, wish I hadn't got to know you now, you cunt, because I have to live with that. I've met Slavoj Žižek, you know, and every time I see him, he says, Bob, my old friend, it's good to see you. Bob. It gets me right here, man. Right in here. It hurts. I don't care. I don't care. Theoretically, hypothetically, philosophically, vaguely, I care. But really, you don't pay rent this month. It affects me not at all. Your life continues to suck because you won't make changes because you're rigidly stuck in your own ego. I don't care. I don't care. And it feels good to say that as a codependent. I don't care. It's not my problem. It's your problem. So I've just told you a story that could it'll send some people through the fucking roof, because the idea that we're living in right now is that all those Chinese people are racist and they owed me something. And I should go back to the Happy Garden and be like, you owe me an apology. But they don't. They don't. Nobody owes me anything. I can't name anybody. Hand on my heart. There is no person alive in this world right now who owes me a fucking thing unless I've paid for a service. Nobody owes me anything. I'm happy when people are kind to me. I'm happy when people show me love, family members, friends. I'm happy. But they don't owe me a fucking thing. Nobody owes you anything. Your parents owe you something. Your parents should, like, if you're a kid, if you're a child, if you're under the age of 16, they owe you something. But really, nobody owes you anything. You're not owed an apology. You're not owed money. You're not owed a start in life. Really, you're not. If your parents have you, they should take care of you and they should not abuse you. That's what you're owed. That's a bog standard issue life. That's it. That's the level. Why am I saying that? Because I think we raised the bar a little too high, and then we're really pissed off. I didn't get the purple Lamborghini on my 14th birthday. I hate you, Mom. I'm going to go and massacre some people now because I didn't get the hot girlfriend I wanted. Me. Yeah, that's a really, really reasonable way of dealing with not getting exactly what you want when you want it, to a fucking nuance. Wow. So I started to be very, very objective, and I started to be very, very rational. And I used Freud. I said to myself, I used a quote from Freud, which is that he said, you should be rigorously honest with yourself at all times, if with nobody else. And I said, okay. I experienced sexual abuse when I was a child, numerous times in numerous contexts. One from a grown man, once from a boy of 18 when I was 13, who stalked me and then sexually abused me, and once from a woman who used to take care of me all the time. And she abused me and another boy in front of me. And the effect of that over time, well, I don't need to tell anybody here because most of you know what, like, it doesn't, I don't think there's an exclusive, like, nobody really owns pain. It's not exclusive. It's not special. People get hurt when they're kids, and they get hurt in different ways. Nobody's led a perfect childhood. Nobody in the history of humanity has been through a perfect childhood. There's always something. But what it did to me was it made me have a very strange relationship with myself and with my shago, with my sexuality. And I became hypersexual. Now I will cite Adler. I think my effort was to resolve the inferiority complex that the hypersexualization of my body when I was very, very young, the first time, I think I would have been 6, was to try to conquer sexual energy itself. And I did that through intense promiscuity in my 20s. Then I got really badly heartbroken when I was 31 because I met somebody who was even more hypersexual than me. And because she was a good-looking 25-year-old in a competition of who can shag the most people and who can cause the most heartbreak, she won, because that was her power at that age, and that was my power at that age. And it devastated me. And the end result of that was that I spent years, quite unconsciously, being as unattractive as I possibly could so that I wouldn't get hurt again. This could be, we could maybe say, if we're using psychoanalytic language, maybe it's like maybe that would be a reaction formation. So there's probably a better term for that. It's like a derivation of reaction formation. So I was exaggerating the extent to which I wanted to be unattractive because I was desperate for love, but I'd experienced pain through being attractive. And that went right the way back to childhood. So I had a lot going on by the time I was 33. I felt completely useless, completely abandoned, and completely miserable. And I was in this situation where I was broke. And I did have friends, but they treated me strangely because, frankly, I behaved strangely. I think I would have. People always say, "Oh, you're a narcissist," and I'm like, I think if I'd gotten clinical diagnoses, I would have been a pro-social psychopath, a factor 2 psychopath, somebody who drifts. They have no purpose in life, extremely emotionally dysregulated, very damaged sense of self, and a borderline. I would have been a borderline, if anything, because I'd been addicted to drugs, I'd been addicted to sex, and then I'd stopped. So I was like a borderline and who'd gone in sort of like a manic 5-year cold turkey kind of thing, but nothing was resolved. It was just held. It was just gripped. I was just gripping everything. Going, okay, I don't know what my 20s was, but I'm not doing that again because that was catastrophic. Let me stop. And it all started to get better when I just told myself the truth. And I was like, okay, this doesn't feel good. Like, people are not treating me lovingly, but I know my intentions are good. I know I'm a good person. I know that I don't want to, I can't say, I know I'm a really good person. I don't want to hurt anyone. I absolutely didn't want to hurt anyone. So I was like, again, reasoning. Are there people out there who want to hurt and dominate and exploit others? Yes, I've met them. Do I want to do that? No, I don't. Okay, so why am I being treated that way? Maybe I'm expressing something in myself that generates that reaction in people, so that I think I was in like a repetition compulsion for rejection. So I could experience rejection again and again, which would be classic for somebody with borderline personality disorder. Side note, I don't really think borderline personality disorder is a good clinical diagnosis. I don't think we should use that anymore. I'm using what I believe to be an anachronistic term to tell you, because most of you will know what that means. You'll be able to you put a placeholder on it. I don't think it's a valid diagnosis. I think well, we need a better one. And other people have suggested them. One of them that's been suggested as my favorite by a clinician, which I am not a clinician. I can't remember the lady's name. She's a professor. She suggests emotional dysregulation disorder. That would make an awful lot more sense to me. So tell the truth. Be really honest with yourself. Look at what you're getting in life and what you actually want, and make the changes accordingly. Philosophically, you need to be tough and robust and adult and humble. You need to come from a place of saying, nobody owes me anything. The world does not have to change to meet my needs to a nuance. If anybody should change, it's me. It would be tyrannical and narcissistic for me to demand that the world change to meet my needs. I remember, sorry if this is boring, and you've heard it before, I sat on a broken couch at the bottom of the tower block. It was pissing with rain, as it often is in Kuala Lumpur, and I had my little notebook and my pen. Get a notebook and a pen, journal all the time. It really, really helped me massively getting my head together to externalize the insanity that was running inside my head. And I could go, that just doesn't, no, that must be like this. And I was journaling. And in the apartment above mine was a large group of Vietnamese bar girls, which is code. And they came down. It was 8. I was there from like 8 until 9, and they would come down about 8:15, and they'd get in vans, and then they'd go to the bars, not that far away from where I was living in Happy Garden. And they'd get to work, and I would sit there on that broken couch, and I'd be like, this really sucks, and I want it to stop. And so I wrote a plan. I was like, how can I make this stop? What can I do to escape? I remember writing the plan. I remember, like, I need to sort my business out. I need to sort my money out. You've got to sort your money out, folks. You've got to do that. That's a spiritual problem. That's a psychological problem. Get your money right. Make some money. You've got to sort your head out. You've got to sort your life out. You've got to get on a diet. You've got to go to the gym. You've got to exercise. You've got to clean yourself up. You've got to start presenting yourself better. Really, like, it means something. Not just for other people, not because we live in a world of narcissistic fashion addicted, goobity bibbledy boo, because we're humans and we always have. The Spartans did their hair on the last day at Thermopylae, knowing they were going to die. The morning of the last fight, when the swords and shields were broken, and they just had a few bits and pieces, they were killing the Persian hordes with their helmets, according to legend. They did their hair first. Look at all tribal cultures across the world. We like it. You like it. That's the creature you are. So I'm not saying you have to look a certain way or do a certain thing, but you must do something. You do care. Don't tell yourself that you don't, because it's inhuman. You do care about how you look. So take care of yourself. You want to wear something crazy or weird, or do your makeup in a weird way, or pierce the thing with the fibbity boo and the birds. Do whatever you want, man, but do something. Take care of your appearance. It's no rebellion to abandon yourself. It's no rebellion. You're not rebelling against anything to abandon yourself and fill your body with shit food and not get a haircut and not clean your fucking fingernails and not brush your teeth and, you know, do all that. It's just shit. Don't do it. I live like that. I was like, fuck it, I'll be dead soon anyway. I don't know how I thought I was going to die. I made no direct efforts to kill myself. I just vaguely thought, oh, I'll be dead soon. Don't do it. Don't do it. Show some self-respect. Take care of yourself. And I started to do that. And I did it to a structure, and I did it every day. And I was in Malaysia. What do they do in Malaysia? 5 times a day. There's a call to prayer. In the Happy Garden, I was on the 17th floor of a tower block, and I could hear the calls to prayer from 4 different mosques ringing out across the valley. Sometimes when the sun was setting, and we would get some sun at night. And you could hear the monkeys fighting with each other in the trees, which you've heard on my old videos. Like I'll stop the old videos from 2014 and I'll be like, oh, you can hear the monkeys in the trees, because Kuala Lumpur is a city that's just carved into the jungle. And I could see from my balcony all the way to Genting Highlands, which is the mountain range where you can gamble in Malaysia. I'd listen to the call to prayer and I'd think, what is that? 5 times a day. Remember I told you with the emotional flashback exercise, you do it 5 times a day. We're mirroring Islamic prayer practice, because that's where the system was given to me. And I was assisted by Muslims. It was Muslims who helped me through. It was Muslims who took care of me and prayed for me and helped me through. And then some Hindus and some Chinese, some Taoists did as well, and Buddhists and Christians. But it was Muslims that helped me through. And 5 times a day, what are they doing? They're speaking to God. Why? They're reminding themselves 5 times a day that this is not the only world that there is, that this is not it. Whatever your religion is, I would say 5 times a day is a pretty good number to remind yourself that this is not it, because the world is powerful. The material world is, I'm going to sound like there's no way to say this without religious language. It's full of temptation. It's full of sin. It's full of corruption. You know, I'm looking out towards Genting Highlands. What did they build in the most beautiful place or one of the most beautiful places in Malaysia? It's a casino. It's where you go to gamble out in the beautiful highlands. There's not a temple up there where you go up and do chanting and ring the bell and clean your karma. The only bells ringing are on those machines where you stick your money in. That's the world. It's powerful. And all these religions know that, like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They know that the world is powerful and full of temptation. That's why the law and the mythology of the Abrahamic religions is don't get stuck in this. Try to remember there's a world beyond. There's a world beyond this. So I was like, okay, so how do people move forward? They move forward with discipline. In Judaism, there is discipline. In Christianity, there is discipline. What's the point of the uniforms? What's the point of the language? What's the point of speaking an ancient dead language that nobody speaks anymore? Why, if we're in Malaysia, are we speaking Arabic? Why, if we're from London or Liverpool, if we're Catholics, do we speak in Latin? Why are we speaking ancient Hebrew or Aramaic? So why is the language different? Why is the uniform different? Why is the mode of being different? It's a discipline. It's to remind you of who you are. So I took out my pen and my piece of paper and I was like, I need a discipline. I wish I could have converted to something, or reverted, as you would in Islam, but I couldn't do it. I just can't. There's no religion that I can ever put my hand on my heart and say I believe that naively. You know, it's just not. Unfortunately, that's denied to me. So I set up my own discipline, and it was to focus my thought, word, and deed, because that's what all religions do. That's what the Abrahamic tradition is the one that I was raised in. I knew about Buddhism. Buddhism is right thought, right word, right deed, right intention, right meditation, right lifestyle. It's the Noble Eightfold Path that takes you away from bad karma and intergenerational trauma in a karmic sense. And in Christianity, you're taught to control your thoughts, your words, and your deeds, as you are in Judaism, as you are in Islam. So I was like, okay, I'll take it. These traditions have these elements to them that are similar, so I'll take it. I'm going to control my thought, word, and deed. I'm going to remind myself 5 times a day of who I am and what my intention is. From that couch with the bar girls squawking at each other and getting into a van in the rain, to getting off that couch and escaping there, I think you would measure that, no exaggeration, it was if it was months, it was only 2, maybe 3. I flew out of the place. I flew out of there. I was in hell. Couldn't escape. Couldn't move. I flew out of there very, very quickly. And to me, that was shadow work. I told the truth. I followed a discipline. I sorted myself out. It was uncomfortable. I went on a very, very, because most of my friends were personal trainers, because it doesn't, various reasons, but like my contacts were all gym people. So there was no shortage of like diet, nutrition, and training advice. And I went on a pretty hard diet and training program. And yeah, in a couple of months, I was out, completely out of there, and I'd sorted myself out. And I consider that shadow work. I was dwelling in shadow, I was dwelling in my own shade. I was marinating in shame and pain and suffering from the past. And I managed to find a way. And it was just through discipline. And I'm not even sat here telling you what the dogmatic discipline needs to be, but you must follow a discipline. Where I would be dogmatic is I would say you must have humility. You can't be entitled and win this game. You can't show up and be like, give me something, because the world just laughs. Reality laughs. I mean, actually, the world right now isn't laughing. It's like, yeah, we'll do that because we're in a temporary mass psychosis, but it won't last. And we all know in our heart of hearts it's fake. Yeah, you can gouge people, you can con people, you can twist people and get some money out of them for a minute, but it's not going to last. It's not. You're building your house on sand, not on rocks. You're not building it on a firm foundation if you're building it on blagging people and being dishonest and manipulating them and provoking them emotionally, guilting them into giving you stuff. Just tell the truth. Be an adult, like Jung said. Shadow work. Well, he never said shadow work. He said you will slowly integrate the shadow over the course of your lifetime. The implication was that it would be easier through psychoanalysis, but there is little more in Jungian psychoanalysis than being brought back to the truth. Everything else is window dressing. It's not window dressing. That's not fair. But the key element is bring the client back to the truth, and it accelerates. So bring yourself back to truth. You're all sat here, like me, like every other human being on the planet, probably on a pile of suppressed, painful truths. Look at them. Pull them out, look at them, explore them, deal with them, process them, and act in accordance with the processing of them. Don't just look at them and put them back and don't change your action. It's like when people talk to me about boundaries, they don't change their actions. That's not a boundary. If you say no to somebody and they do it again and you do nothing, that's not a boundary. That's just you going, yeah. The boundary is the consequence. The boundary is the action. The boundary is that you do something, that you look at it, and then you change your behavior on the basis of what you found. That would be shadow integration. That would be bringing that which is unconscious to the conscious. And that would be growing up, becoming an adult. We all want society to be more mature. Everybody who's here will be probably of a similar mindset to me. We need more civil debate. We need to be calmer. We need to look at the facts. We can't just be going off our emotions all the time. We can't just be using logical fallacy and cognitive bias to construct arguments and positions that only serve our interests. There's no future in it. We want better, right? Everybody here wants better. Sounds facile, sounds corny, but we all need to be that change first. We have to be more reasonable and rational and rigorous and learn logical fallacies and keep away from logical fallacies. Learn cognitive biases and then keep away from making those same mistakes. Learn what codependency is and seek to heal it in ourselves. If you experienced abuse in childhood, you need to do something about that. There's no evidence that that will just go away on its own. CPTSD over time is shown to get worse. And it's, if you look at the work on the effect of being raised in what they call adverse childhood environments, ACE, you can go on Google Scholar and look at effects of ACE in childhood. These are deleterious effects on your relationships, your capacity to be in love, your propensity towards addiction, your vulnerability to mental illness and physical illness. You can't be physically strong if you're tortured by intense anxiety and emotional flashbacks and rages and depressions every day. Your body will get tired over time. And as you age, you will be susceptible. I try and avoid talking like this on the main channel because I've been nervous up until now of being accused of being ableist or something like that. But I just look at it and I go, look, if I was disabled, like I was with my knee, couldn't walk for 3 months, or I couldn't. My leg was in a hard brace for 3 months. It never occurred to me to demand that everybody in my environment put on a leg brace as well and let their fucking quad and calf shrivel. It never occurred to me once that everybody around me should be equal with me and also walk on fucking crutches and have a hard time taking a shit because you've got a fucking brace on 24/7. You don't notice, but like if you actually next time you go to the toilet and sit down, try and keep a straight leg. It's fucking ridiculous. If you've got an external leg brace over you, you can't take your trousers all the way off. Never occurred to me. Would I want that? No. If I had a problem or I wasn't able in some way, I wouldn't want to hold the rest of the world back. There are things I'm not able to do now just because I'm not clever enough or I just don't have a natural propensity for it. If you could all fly and I couldn't, I wouldn't be like, oh, you fucking pricks, stay on the ground. We can literally fly. I don't care. I can't. Everyone can fly except you. Well, I can't. So none of your motherfuckers go and fly. Fly. If you can fucking fly for me. Some of you fucks could at least get together and carry me. So I am going to talk like that now because fuck it. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? That wouldn't happen anyway. Nothing, I don't think. The only other element to this that I wanted to add, because I was asked what one thing could we all be doing now that would help with everything, and I would say it 2 ways: meditation, or if you don't like hearing the word meditation, call it de-stimming, de-stimulation. Go and sit, or kneel, or lie down and stare at a wall, and put a timer on, and don't move. If you've never done it before, do it for 2 minutes. Look at the fucking wall and breathe. Do nothing. The next time you try it for 3. The next time for 4. The next time for 5. Here on this channel, the Richard Grannon Philosophy channel, I have guided meditations for people. Try them. Try them. If you can't do the full 15-minute one, try the de-stimming thing I just said. Sit, look at something. And breathe. And let the silence sink into your bones. There is a doctrine, there is a dogma in silence that is superior to anything any human being has ever spoken. And you'll hear it if you sit still and calm the F down for long enough. Just breathe and listen. you'll hear it, because you won't be hearing the voices in your head all the time. It's too much content, man. Empty the cop. Give it a break. Give it a rest from all that ideology and nonsense. I'll take a couple of questions and then I'll sign off. Visceral Gravitas is here. Please follow Visceral Gravitas on YouTube. Sit and look at something. Daydream. Chillax, man. Unless you have kids, in which case, may God help you, because they like this reality and they like shouting and hitting you in the face. Yeah, wait until somebody else is looking after the kids and then try it. De-stimming instead of meditation. Dig it. Sir, man. Emily Campbell asked, do you think the psychic culture is toxic to the healing process? I couldn't say blanket statement all, but somebody was asking me about magic and magical practice the other day, and he's struggling with a few personal issues, and he's a young man. He's trying to grow up now, not particularly easy to do. And I said, look, he's bright. I said, just be aware of the opening to psychosis that is there when you're in divination, tarot, psychic, magic, because the unconscious will start talking to the unconscious and synchronicities will occur. And you can start, thinking the fridge is telling you like the 11th commandment or something. And then you've gone too far. Don't go young. Don't go young on me. He went mad. He deliberately went mad. Knowing he'd go mad, he went mad for a while. But he went psychotic. Because you can. It's not hard to do. I don't recommend it. But that avenue of the psychic it's a really quick route to going psychotic, so be careful. Read everybody having to wear a leg brace. Go read Harrison Bergeron, a very pertinent short story by Vonnegut. It's very apt. Seriously, go read. I will. Harrison Bergeron. You guys told me to read Slaughterhouse 5. I listened. I will read Harrison Bergeron. Everybody's going to read The Coddling of the American Mind. I've got it on Audible. I'm going to get it on my Kindle tonight. And we're going to discuss that next week. The Coddling of the American Mind. That's Richie and Pierre's book club from Tentacle Croissant. Manuela B says, I'm so happy to see a video of the real Richard after a while. Indeed. Yeah. Kieran says, in depression, there's an energetic problem. I just don't want to move some days. Is it okay to jumpstart energy by defeating an enemy in battle? Yes. The jihad you face, my child, is the jihad with the demons inside of you. It's a personal battle. The enemy you must defeat is yourself. That's a facetious answer. My real answer would be, in my own experience of depression, I think it could be an extensive freeze response, because it hits the body so strongly. It's rare that I get depression, but when I do, if you've ever boxed and you've been hitting the liver with a good shot or hitting the kidney with a good shot, your world ends for the period of pain of the liver shot or the kidney shot. Depression can be like that. It can hit you and it drops you. I think there's a pronounced freeze response. So it's biological, I suspect. For some of us, sometimes. Depression is an umbrella term. I think there are different types of depression, but I've always suspected there was one type of depression where if you were screamed at when you were a kid, this is pure theory on my part. This is not coming from any published literature, that you would be flooded with adrenaline and that your body would go, because you can't fight back and you can't run and you can't fawn because you're too young. So your body freezes as still as it can. And then that becomes one potential mode of response to any stress throughout life. But it becomes physical, and you're trying to move and your body's going, no, we keep still now. So your legs and arms feel heavy and your chest feels like it's got a great demon sat weightily upon it, crushing the joy and the urge to live from out of your lungs as every second ticks by and you're one step closer to the grave, Clarice. Yeah, depression's a bummer, man. So, all right. UG Rose is here. Hi, UG. I saw Potent was here. Hello, Potent. Thanks for checking in, mate. It's debilitating if you can acknowledge the depression. It's like you have to break the freeze, flight, still body, crazy mind. If we treat it as an emotional flashback and we try and resolve the emotional flashback, and we also, you can't just treat emotional flashbacks without resolving your relationship with your superego. You have to do both of that work in tandem, ideally. That's what worked for me. It's alleviated the tendency tremendously, to the point where I would say I can tell you over the last 4 years how many times I've been hit with depression, and I think it would be countable on one hand, which for somebody who's dealt with depression is a pretty good result. It's a pretty strong result. Is it bad to expect your country to provide healthcare? Not for a British person, it isn't. Could this provide evidence of borderline? It would provide evidence of winning. It depends on where you are and what the context is. You know, for some people that's seen as like, it's very socialist to do that. I mean, I certainly wouldn't say that like somebody's political, a purely political stance is evidence of a mental health issue. No, never. That's a really dangerous road to go down. But if somebody is pretending they're presenting a political stance that's really just a thinly veiled psychotic episode that's rooted in emotional flashbacks due to childhood trauma, that's a different thing. And that's what's happening in the field of politics right now. And a lot of what we see in the world is like, this is political. And you're like, it isn't political, is it? You're angry, you've got real problems, and you're angry with yourself. And so there's no resolution through this. But on that particular issue, of healthcare, no, I think I would say, like, as a Brit, I'm very proud of the fact that you can come here, and if you get hurt, we will patch you back up, because you can't say that for all countries. Last question from the shadow. What would you recommend to young men that feel alone and depressed because they feel not seen in society, and women, since feminism has enhanced the ideology that they don't need us? That's not a clean question. That's a loaded question, and I don't agree with everything you've loaded that question with. I don't think it's that simple, and I don't consent to your analysis of what the problem is. Not seeing each other is broader than any single movement. It's broader than any single political endeavor. There's a movement towards not seeing each other that is. I don't want to get too deeply into this right now because we're at the end. We are in a love and attention deficit environment. Why that is has far more to do with a hard steer. Like if it's a big ship, there was a steer that went hard to port on a very predatory form of consumer capitalism that reduced human beings to numbers and algorithms, and you're reduced through a certain perception of a certain lens to what you can buy. Did the feminist movement get hijacked by that? I've heard different people talk about it, and talk about it convincingly, that maybe that had more to do with this version of consumer capitalism that we're living with now. Getting people to buy more stuff, getting more people in the workplace, keeping the price of labor down, making it so that there's just more people buying more shit that they didn't need to keep a zombie economy pumped and going. That hasn't been a real economy for getting on for a century. So I mean, there are factors here that interrelate, but the idea that it's feminism that is why young men aren't seen is so simplistic. It's I wouldn't want to call your position ludicrous, but because that would be insulting, and I don't want to insult you. It's way too simplistic, way too reductive, and you know, with all due respect, I just don't think feminism has that kind of power or interest. I don't really see. We're living through a period where we know there's problems, and it becomes easy to create boogeymen, or in this case, boogie women. Boogie woogie. And to go, it's all their fault. I mean, it's very, very complicated, and none of us are guilt free. There isn't a human being alive who hasn't played into this. It's like nobody forces me at the point of a gun to consume. I like to consume because I'm a little monkey down from the trees not that long ago, evolutionary speaking, raised in a low resource environment, who thinks salt is great, who thinks fucking sugar is awesome, who likes shiny stuff and boobs and bangles and cars and music and jewelry and, you know, how many things have you consumed in the last 24 hours that you didn't need but that you just wanted because it made you feel good? Are you watching this on an iPhone right now? Are you consuming this because you need it or because you want it, because it stimulates your intellectual vanity? It helps it. Like, come on, this is what I'm talking about here. We gotta learn to wipe our own arses now. Like, it's not they did it too. No, they didn't. Nah, man, they didn't. It's all of us. We're all complicit in this mess, which is great news. That means we all hold the key to escaping this mess. We can create a better world. We're very qualified for it. We're growing up. The species is growing up. I said last year we're going through a cultural adolescence. We're going through a species adolescence, and now's the time to choose to consciously evolve, and we will. I believe 100%. It's already done in my world, in my magical practice. I live in a reality where it's already done. I just really am just talking whilst it's happening. I don't have to make an effort. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Do you feel me? It is done. All right, kids. That was fun, right? Well, I would just like to say thank you all very, very much for your time and your attention. And be careful what you spend your time and your attention on. The shadow work is real. Even though Jung didn't call it shadow work. We've got to grow up. We've got to be responsible. We've got to stop blaming others. We have to pick up our own shit now. But part of that is telling the truth. Tell yourself the truth. Be objective. Be rational. Learn what a logical fallacy is. Learn what a cognitive bias is. Don't fall prey to them. Stop blaming other people. And stop blaming other things and ideologies and governments. And just assume it's you. There's your magical practice for the week, apart from reading The Coddling of the American Mind. Assume it's you. Assume that you are the wizard at the center of everything, and that you're causing this to happen in your own simulation so that you can learn a lesson. And that therefore this is the perfect lesson for you every day. Just assume that and live like that and go, what am I trying to teach myself today? The faster I learn this lesson, the faster I can move past it, because some of these lessons are getting a bit boring now. Right? We get a bit dull. Fine. So we did that one. Okay. So let's all just go. We all joined hands on this one. We all did that one. Okay. Let's move forward. Controlling what you put your time and attention into is your currency. That is your magical energy. You're a wizard, Ari. Hello. look forward to speaking to you again soon. Take care.